What's going on, New Canoe Nation, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Unlimited Podcast, episode 80. We're almost to 100. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Drop in the comments where you guys are tuning in from, what kind of boat you're floating out of. We don't even care if it's not a new canoe. We're just happy to have you here, talk a little kayak fishing, and tonight we got my man Jimmy Skinner back in the house. We had him on, it's probably been almost a year ago, roughly. But we're going to talk about the Flint tonight. We're going to drop the motors, the batteries, all that stuff, and go back to picking up the paddle, which is something that I'll admit I haven't talked much about here on the show, and I think it's something that gets overlooked. I mean, that's the roots of kayak fishing. And Jimmy had approached me about doing this, and I was like, heck yeah, man, let's do that. Like, that's something we should definitely talk about, and we don't highlight the Flint enough. So we're going to hear about how he utilizes the Flint, where he uses it, why he uses it, going back to the roots of paddling and things like that. Don't get me wrong, my man's not afraid to use a motor, but he does quite a bit. Jimmy's from the great state of Alabama, Greenbow to be exact. But let's get him in here and get a conversation going. And as we go along, guys, gals, if you got any questions, comments, drop them in the chat. We'll get them answered for you guys. Mr. Skinner, welcome
What's
back.
up? Appreciate it, man. It has been about a year, I guess.
Yeah, I forgot to look back. I was going to look back, but I know it's been a hot minute, and we had
I don't
you
even
on.
remember what we were talking about.
Who knows? Just you. Just
Yeah.
how much of a badass you are, you know?
Probably. It's time to step on that one again.
Well, let's get a little background on you for folks that may not know you. Obviously, you're from Alabama. How you got into kayak fishing, the shop you work with, all that good stuff, man.
Yeah. Jimmy Skinner, of course, from Alabama, like you said. I think I've actually been kayak fishing for like 5 or 6 years now. I can't even remember at this point. I fished most of my life and then got away from fishing, and my brother-in-law took me kayak fishing one time, caught a fish, and been hooked ever since. And it's like just about everything else I get into hobby-wise, it's spirals out of control. I've done club director, I've bassmaster director for our state. Sponsors here and there, shops here and there. Like currently, I'm work with Music City Outdoors out of Nashville. It's the premier shop in the South. I would say that over Dugout just because we've got more manufacturer options, but he definitely has us beat with a tackle, which I'm very jealous of. But it's cool because we have a really good relationship. Neither shop like digs at each other, so it's great. So I can kind of get the best of both worlds if I want to.
Sure.
But yeah, if you're in, you don't have to be in the South, man. We probably get more customers come from out of state to our shop to check out all of our selection, more so than the locals. So give them a look if you're looking for a new boat. We got some killer deals right now, but little plug. But yeah, tournament fish, backwater fish, do some of that Drew Gregory stuff, lake fish. Like you said, I'm not afraid to use a motor. Even though I do have an unlimited fully rigged, I spent some the other day. I think I still put way more time in my Flint than I do my unlimited. The unlimited seems to go with me on traveling more because you can do both with it, and I don't like to take both boats. I've done it once, and one boat just sits there the whole time. But yeah, like you said, I know you're not a big paddling fan, but I know a bunch of folks that aren't.
I used to. I was thinking about it today because I knew we were doing the show, and there was a video that Chad Hoover did a while back, and it was about like motors and KBF tournaments and stuff. And I remember it was like I just got into kayak fishing, and the shop that I work with, most of those guys are all wreck paddlers, you know. So I was
Yeah.
kind of a paddle snob for a little bit, and I remember I commented on it, and I was like, oh, you know, like this isn't kayak fishing, like, you know, might as well get a boat, blah 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 blah. And you know, to Chad's credit, he's like, look, man, this is the way it's going. Like, either you like it or you don't, and it
Yeah.
is what it is. You're not going to change it. And you know, fast forward, shoot, probably 4 or 5 years now, like he was 100% spot on, you know. And I was like, man, I kind of stuck my foot in my mouth on that one, you know, running a Newport motor. I also have the XI3 option, you know, and I'm like, oh geez, like my old self would be kicking my butt right now.
I think we all start as purists, man. Like I paddling was it. I got the first kayak I used was an Ascend, so not the greatest paddler, but something that,
Sure.
showed me there's a world of good paddling kayaks. The second kayak I was in, I just borrowed for one trip, was an Ocean Kayak Prowler. And to this day, one of the fastest kayaks I've ever been in, and smooth paddler.
Sure.
Wind, surf, whitewater, like not like whitewater drops, but like white caps. That thing
Yeah,
can
yeah.
handle it. And that is what made me be more like of a purist to it at first. My first new canoe was a Pursuit, and I loved paddling. I was one of those guys. I still know some of them that weren't. There's nothing to complain about that boat. I mean, it was big, 13 and a half feet, but you could paddle it
It
super
was quick.
quick. Man,
Yeah.
quick. It was very easy to get up to speed. Turning, it's a big boat, but it has a small width and a long beam, and I didn't have a problem with it because I kept the seat so far back.
Sure.
Um, it was great. Some folks, don't like the stability of it. I never had a problem with it. I've walked all over it, and I went from there. That's what brought me into New Canoe and how tough they were. Like that boat was used by probably we have a guy down here I used to fish with a bunch that could show Drew Gregory a thing or two on how to be rough with a kayak. Like I've watched him take a brand new kayak and literally just throw it down a riprap wall and like not even think twice about it. And I got the boat from him. I beat the crap out of it. I sold it to a guy. He beat the crap out of it, and someone else. It's like a 2015 model Pursuit. Still doesn't have any holes in it. It's still making its rounds up here. Like,
Sure.
but the picture that you showed at the beginning of this, that's the first Flint that I had, and that's what got me hooked on that boat. And I haven't replaced that. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I missed that color, man. I wish like crazy we'd bring back that color. I love
There,
mine's Tundra now, but that green was so sick.
a lot of people want that back. I know Team New Canoe member David Brook, all his boats were that nuclear green, you know.
Yeah.
So
And that one,
um
mine was a one of the first production ones,
okay.
like very early on the VIN stamp. Uh, and you could tell. I think it was that like the VIN stamp wasn't in the correct place, so it was
Sure.
like a test run boat.
Sure.
And I got it secondhand from a guy, and the green on the picture doesn't do it. It was different than the nuclear greens. It was just slightly shaded different. But if you sat them next to each other, you could totally see it.
Yeah.
But I loved that thing, and only reason I got rid of it was because they released the new colors, and the Tundra color with the white in it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was sick, and still neutral enough you could use it for, hunting if you needed to, or
Sure.
you could use it for visibility.
Yeah. 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 No, they're slick little boats, man. And I think it gets overlooked a lot. Like you look at like all the different manufacturers across the board, and they have a boat that's, you know, very similar. I always refer to it as a grab and go or a small creek boat. Where are you mainly utilizing the Flint? Like what kind of bodies of water? Are you taking it on lakes, or are you mostly like creeks and streams with it?
I have, when I've been down a boat or like in between big boats, I've taken it out. Main lake. I've pushed the limit of what I felt safe doing with it. I've been out in the middle of Smith Lake with 3-foot rollers and boat traffic everywhere, 30-mile-an-hour wind, and I finally was like, okay.
Yeah.
I never get close to coming out, but I was like, this, if it's going to happen, I have found out where.
Yeah,
And that,
right.
I was sitting in 90 foot of water, nothing strapped to the kayak, because
Sure.
it was one of those, just the weather just picked up on us.
Right.
I
Right.
shouldn't
Right.
have been out there anyway, but
Sure.
mostly it's it's the creek boat, the river boat, moving water, shallow water. Up here we got a lot of like backwater sloughs and swamps and like isolated just honey holes that are, gator and beaver filled mucky paradises, and that's where it goes. I wouldn't say that it's. I mean, if you're a stronger fella, it's a throw and go boat. Like I don't have any problem moving it around, but I have put my hands on lighter kayaks that I think would be much better, like quote
Sure.
unquote throw and go. But those boats probably won't paddle as well. The
Sure.
Flint paddles, in my opinion, phenomenal for what it is to be a very dedicated, fishing kayak. But yeah, it's mostly just anywhere I don't need to carry a crazy amount of stuff, which you can. I mean, I used to run it as a tournament setup. So, 5 or 6 rods, a crate, all that jazz. But now typically if I go, especially with the gear pod, since they released that, I take the gear pod off the Unlimited, put it on the front of the Flint, and I put all my tackle in it now, and I can fit full rain gear, a good size first aid kit, all of my tackle, whether I'm needing like one bag or 50 or whatever.
Sure.
And all of it fits in there, and I have nothing else on the kayak anywhere other than the rods or, stakeout poles, things like that. But yeah, that's most of what it is, the little afternoon trips or trips where you definitely don't want to drag anything over like 80 pounds.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, when I go out in the Flint, I paddle the small river down the road, and I bring like 2 rods and a bag of plastics. And I don't know why, but I haven't thrown my gear pod in it. And as you said that, I was like, dude, I'm an idiot. I could just do that,
Man, I'm like so guilty of always like trying a new setup.
Sure.
Try to find the best way something works. And for a while, I thought I had it dialed in because I had the first generation dashboard for it. I think that's what they called it. Whatever it was that went on the front.
System. Yeah.
And I'd run that, and I put it's like a Berkeley wall mounted rod holder.
Okay.
I took half of one of those and mounted it on the track, and then it basically sets you up with rod stagers between your legs. And I ran that. That's what I think might be on that boat in that picture. I can't even remember. But I ran that for a while, and then I would run. It doesn't have the rod holder on there, but that's the
the front.
Yep,
dashboard system.
But I used to run that and an Engel cooler, and I'd put all my tackle in the Engel cooler, and instead of an actual crate, just to keep down on weight, because it's got the 4 recessed rod holders, so you don't, in my opinion, that boat doesn't justify needing more. I can do 4 behind me and 2 up between my legs at most, if that's what I'm, going for. I've experimented with putting like the old Ram bazooka tubes.
Mm-hmm.
I've put those back there on the tracks. Those work if you really want to carry extra stuff. But and then when the gear pod came out, I don't know what, like it, like I knew it fit, but it didn't really ever like cross my mind. And then I took it out of the Unlimited one day and set it in the Flint, just to sit it there so I could go back to what I was doing.
Sure.
And then like later that day I was looking at it and was like, I wonder how much stuff I can fit in it. And I took it in the house, and I got an NRS first aid kit that's pretty big, full size bass boat rain gear, like bibs, heavy jacket.
Sure.
6 3600 boxes and soft plastics, and then a couple money bags thrown in there. And it closes just fine. It's not bulging out the top. People say that it's not that big. You just need to stop being lazy and get more creative with how you put stuff in your gear. Like you got to Tetris it.
Yeah.
And then it's great because like when I get back, if I don't feel like unloading the boat, I just pop 2 screws and snatch that thing out and just carry it in the house. I hadn't ran electronics on the Flint in a long time though. If I did that ever again, the gear pod would be key for that now, because that was always a problem when I did it before. Because I've ran a motor on the Flint before, and it was
cooking.
No, not surprisingly, no. It's a quick boat for its size, but the weight that you add to it to get the motor going.
Yeah,
Because
slows it down.
this was the old EPS system, and I had a 100 amp hour battery, the lithium, and then all your regular gear. It wasn't as fast as I thought. Now I didn't have to paddle it, which was fantastic.
Sure.
But it wasn't. I thought it'd be a screamer. I thought 5.5 miles an hour. It was like 4. So
sure. Well, in that old EPS, that was like what, a 45-pound thrust, or was it 50?
Yeah,
45.
It was 45, and then I later learned I swapped props on it, actually on recommendation from the electric kayak company. I swapped the prop up to a bigger prop for torque to match the 55-pound torque rating, and I started noticing later on after I used it a bunch that it was cavitating. You could feel it in the seat.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually changed it when me and you were in Florida this year.
Oh,
I swapped the prop and picked up a 3/4 mile an hour, and wasn't on the Flint, but still it was a huge difference. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to tinker with that kind of stuff, and it's always interesting what kind of results you get. You know what I mean? But
oh yeah,
it's always and that's one thing about you, man. I mean, I know you more on a personal level. It's like you're always changing stuff up, or what if I do this? What is that going to give me? Type of deal, and it's pretty cool to see that. Because you're always giving feedback on different setups, which is super nice.
Yeah, a lot of it gets bred from seeing a question.
Like,
has anybody done X? And then if I don't see any response to it, or I haven't done it myself before, I want to try it if it seems feasible. So like, somebody had asked, like, I was going and trying somebody's kayak out, I think is what it was. Just I try all boats, man. It's like trading cards, anything. I got to play with them all,
Sure.
I was trying a boat out and was like, well, you can just borrow my Flint while I test yours out. And he was like, you got to have a motor on it. I'm not paddling. And I was like, I can do that. And I did. I set up a motor, and first time he used it was the first time I used it, and it worked fine. So, but I wish I could get a new canoe in AZ.
Yeah. Brian Husk, it's coming, man. It's coming.
They got water out there right now? Like,
they do. There's a few lakes, rivers,
couple
reservoirs type
California
deals,
drought's not bleeding that way.
I mean, it definitely is for sure, but there's still water. Brian, hold on. I know that's something that's definitely in the works, man. They're working on some dealers right now in the on the West Coast and Southwest. So hopefully they get something closer to you soon.
Yeah.
But we were talking about paddling, man. So what's your go-to paddle when you're paddling the Flint? And then I know, all of us kind of get this question too. What size paddle are you using for the Flint?
My go-to paddle, even before I started working with them, was Bending Branches. I've played with a bunch of different ones. Right now, it's the Angler Pro, the pretty ones.
Yeah.
But I've used the Angler Ace, the Angler Scout, or Angler Classic Scout, and the what's the wooden one called? I should know this. The Navigator.
Yeah.
They all do great, but by far, in my opinion, the Angler Pro moves the blade angle on it's perfect. It's got that thin blade and the paddle super light. It works better than and the Navigator costs more, and I'm still picking the Angler Pro over it. It's just been
sure.
I'm on my second or third one of those now, not because they broke, because I've lost them. Well, I lost half of one, and the other one went to the bottom of Smith Lake. Actually, on that trip, that's how bad the waves were. How hard it is to get the paddle out of the taco clips on the sides of the new canoe? It blew the paddle out of it, and I was like, I'll just go back and get it in a second. And by the time I could turn around in the waves, it sank.
Dude, I got a funny story on that, but real quick, Brian Husk says we have several huge reservoirs in some rivers. Colorado is at risk, but it's currently full.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, because they're below Lake Mead, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Lake Mead is suffering. If nobody's seen that, the water levels are at historic lows.
Answering a whole bunch of mafia questions, though.
Yeah, it definitely is. Many barrels and things are coming amok in Lake Mead right now. So I was with you in Florida and I lost my paddle. I had my motor, but where I lost it, I have no idea. I must have gone through some gnarly grass, which I typically do, and there was tall grass, and I'm assuming it got caught up in that and then pulled out of the taco
I
clip.
mean, it could have been the wind too, because it was stupid when we were down there.
Yeah, it was like what, 40-mile-an-hour winds or something?
Yeah, we had 30-mile-an-hour sustained and 40-mile-an-hour gusts. It was
Yeah.
absolutely the stupidest fishing trip to be on. Like, it's like,
But um end of summer, early fall, it was beginning of September. I was up on the Mississippi and I was up there for early goose and teal season. And I took off in my unlimited, and I was going back to hunt this back slough. And some folks, we were camping with a big group, and they were going the other way. They were out fishing, and I knew I used my paddle to kind of get through some thick grass, and I must not have put it in the actual taco clip all the way. And I get back to the marsh, hunt, go to get in the kayak, and then grab my paddle to push off so I could back out, and it wasn't there. And I'm
that
like,
sucks.
dude, where did it go? So I ended up finding some like sticks, got some weeds around them that acted like a paddle, got me out of there. The next day, we're in the parking lot because our friend Brad's he was up there, and he had his duck boat, and we were replacing a tire and a bearing in the parking lot. And the guys that were going the other way, uh, he's like, "Hey, did you lose a paddle yesterday?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually, I did." "Don't tell me you found it." And he's like, "Actually, I did. It's in the back of my truck." He's like, "I saw it floating there in the river when I was coming back towards camp, and I picked it up." And yeah, so the new canoe paddles actually float a little bit. I thought it would have sank, but yeah, got my paddle back. So make sure your paddle is tethered to your kayak. That's the
And,
moral of the story.
yeah, and just to touch on that, bending branches sinking, it was, I mean, bending branches took care of it.
Sure.
And they were like, well, is it pretty old paddle? And I was like, yeah, it's been around the block. And they explained like things shift, and if it sits there for too long, it will potentially, but they took care of it.
That's
So,
cool. That's cool.
but as far as length goes, for me, I'm 5'7". I don't have any like change in the seat height on the seat in the Flint. 240 actually works really good, but 250 is just that little bit better. I feel like I get a more powerful stroke with the 250.
Sure.
And then it's also big enough I can use it in something else if I need to.
Yeah.
Or if somebody else that comes along is, taller or something like that, they can have that paddle, because I use a 260 for my unlimited.
Yeah.
And I got a few paddles. So, but yeah, it's I'd say even if Angler Ace isn't in your budget, an Angler Pro, the Angler Ace, it's basically the same paddle. The blades are just a little different, but it's a good bit cheaper. Still has a carbon shaft. That most of the guys I know run that paddle and have no complaints. I've used it on that boat, and it's just fine. But definitely make sure you spend the money to get a carbon paddle of some kind of high quality, whether it's Werner, bending branches, whatever, because it makes that paddling experience just even better. And you can, man, I keep the seat like 1 inch off of the very end of the track,
Okay.
and it keeps the bow up, but it keeps the boat stupid maneuverable.
Sure.
It's something that I can say. I hear people talk about that the Flint paddle's sluggish. Well, they're sitting in it like I am. If you know you need to cover water, scoot the seat up. Get the
Mm-hmm.
bow down. Something I've noticed with all the new canoes is the more weight you put towards the front, the faster they go. The
Sure.
unlimited with the motor on it, I'll play leaning on the seat, and you'll watch it go up half a mile an hour. I went so far as I stood up on the front of the boat right at the gear pod and was almost taking water over the front, and it was still getting faster. So that's just to say that they like the weight on the bow to really
Sure.
cut through the water. So if you're having, that's something you should kind of already know. When you get into kayak and you get into paddling, if you have a trimmable seat, you need to kind of study up on that. test it in different positions and understand what the seat positions, high, low, forward, aft, what it all means and does to how the boat reacts. So for people that may be looking at getting one of these for bigger water, put the seat up closer to midways and, rock on. It's fine. Something else to touch on, stability is everybody's topic is how stable is the boat, blah, blah, blah. Can you stand in it? Well, that shouldn't be your first priority. Some people like to think that or say that the Flint's tippy. I have zero issue in it. I'm a bigger guy. I'm like 225 right now, and I'll stand up, spin around. Just the last time I use it, when I get in, I will walk in with my feet together, which is the absolute stupidest thing you can do. But the boat doesn't. I've literally, knock on wood, to this day, I've never fallen out of any kayak, this one included. I've had a couple of close calls, but it's usually my fault. But I've done rear entry. I've put that boat in some sketchy places where you can't get beside it.
Sure.
And you can't turn the boat. I've walked in straight through the back of the rear tank well and stepped over the seat. I've paddled from back there. I mean, like, they're super, super stable in my opinion, as far as it's got a whole lot of secondary to catch you. And
sure,
working with our shop, something I have to explain to people all the time is you can't judge a boat stability within the first 5 minutes. Spend time in it, and when you're comfortable, it'll be completely different. Like, completely different.
I agree with that 100%, man. Like, I know when I first got into kayak fishing, I went down and did a demo day at my local shop, and I got in a boat and paddled it around. And I'm like, oh man, this seems like super tippy. And then I went and jumped in another boat, and then I got back in that one. And I'm like, oh, this is actually more stable than I thought it was the first time. And I think it was just, getting comfortable, moving around in the seat, moving around in the boat a little bit, and finding that balance point, so to speak, and, I've only fallen out of one kayak, and it was actually the Flint, but it was 100% my fault. Instead of walking down around a dam and launching with our good friend Jay Randall, I was like, dude, the water's low in the river. Let's just go down the Whitewater Park. And the first drop, I just rolled right out of the kayak. It was 100% my fault.
And his flip-flops will be missed.
Yeah, they're floating somewhere. I mean, by now they might be in Louisiana at the end of the Mississippi River or in the Gulf of Mexico,
Yeah.
But that was so bad, but totally my fault.
I've had some close calls in rough water, and it's not the boat. It's when you have drops like that.
Your weight's just shifting around, and you got to compensate for that.
And you compensate counter.
Yeah.
You don't, or not counter. You think you compensate counter. So like, what happens is when you come out of a wash or a drop or whatever, the water flowing underneath is pushing harder.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is it tries to wash the boat out and push the boat up off of its keel.
Sure.
And a lot of people think lean with that turn and kind of like carve.
Yeah.
You don't do that. You need to go away from the water. And the close call I had, that's what I did. It was the first time I'd done the drop tons of times, but it was the first time I'd ever done it with the water moving that hard. And right when I went out of the wash where it eddies, I got on the current seam. Yep. And I got on the current seam, and it went to wash the left side right out from under me. And I paddled into it, and I thought I was going to spin it around. And all I did was increase that flip. And I was basically on my side in the seat. The Flint was on its side, and I had my hand over it in the scupper groove. And I was able to power it back down into the water. Face went in the water, but I never came out of the kayak, and it never flipped over.
Sure.
Didn't lose anything. But I mean, I did it one time and I was like, oh, okay, now I know. Don't lean in, lean out.
Yeah.
But something that you mentioned, it's nice to bring some light back to the paddling half of it, because like NuCanoe's whole thing was pedal power.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say that I feel like we've even got guilty of it. NuCanoe as a whole, me and you, it's like motor, big boat stability, bow mounts. Like, don't take it away. All these products that we make still paddle. Like my unlimited paddle's just fine to be as big as it is. Like, I have a motor on my boat, but it's just so I can go down 10 miles and then get into some stupid, skinny, like sloppy crap that I can barely push the boat through. It's so shallow,
Sure.
but it does fine. Don't think you've got to come to these boats and immediately get pedals or a motor. Like, paddle these things, man, especially the Flint. The Flints, I mean, I sell a bunch of them to wreck people that, if anybody listening to this, maybe not a fisher, an angler, or have any interest in fishing, a question that puts me on selling this boat to a wreck person is they come in and be like, I want to take my dog.
Yep.
Perfect fit.
I was just going to say
plenty of room for your dog up front. We've sold them to people whose Great Dane sits in front of them. Like, they can handle it, And it's not going to, I mean, in my opinion, that boat's probably going to paddle even better because of the extra weight in the front.
Yep.
But
yeah, totally agree, man. It's we get that in our shop too. Like, I want an open deck concept so I could take my dog. What do you recommend? And we always steer him to a new canoe, and it's either, 9 times out of 10, it's either a Flint or a Frontier 12, depending on size and things like that. But yeah, I mean, you're 100% spot on, man. And it's the big craze in the kayak fishing world has been all the motor options and stuff like that. And you can't forget, where we started,
Exactly.
We got Brad in the chat. He says his dog Pippa has been in his Flint more than a few times. And I know he's got some really good pictures of his dog standing in the front, just chilling, hanging out. She loves the water.
Something that I wanted to hit on right here was this comment. Rec is a far larger audience too. And that's something that, getting to work as closely with my shop as I do now and like get to know the numbers and like more of the gritty details, like 10% of this is kayak fishing. 10%. At our store, that 90% of our kayaks are fishing kayaks. 90% of the people buying them don't fish. And that's something for everybody that's listening to this to keep in mind. If you are trying to push this product or, recommend it to people, you don't have to shy away from telling your friend that's just wanting to go drink beer and float down the river. Like, this thing will do it. Like, you don't got to have fishing poles with you. It's just, that's a great thing about our platform is they are fishing kayaks, but they're so stripped down. Like, there's nothing that's they're closer to canoes than they are to most mainstream fishing kayaks right now, outside of maybe like Crescent, Crescent's minus the shoalie. They're pretty stripped down. And, it's, marketing, baby, 100%. But yeah, they're phenomenal platforms for just about anything. I just want to make sure people know that they paddle fantastic. Like, and they get into some, I'll bet you all of my biggest fish, I think all but one of my big fish have came in my Flint. And that's
nice.
That's 100% true. Because even up until I broke my PB the last time, all of my personal best fish had came in my Flint. Getting in some slack water, or like going out to gunners, getting in the nasty grass the boats can't get into. And you can, they're phenomenal fishing platforms. I wish that we saw more love from even our team guys. I know a bunch of our guys have got them, but again, we all are getting caught up in the other stuff.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things, man. That's kind of what's in the mainstream right now for kayak fishing. But I agree 100%, man. As far as the wreck, like I've taken a Flint out just to paddle the river with one of the guys from the shop, like, hey, let's go do like a 10-mile paddle and just chill and hang out and relax. And dude, that thing does awesome. Just cruising along and taking in the scenery and all that kind of stuff. I think when I'm fishing, I miss a lot of that stuff, because I'm so focused on trying to catch a damn fish. I don't take it all in like we should,
And the motor will do that too, man. Back to the, beginning of the conversation about like the purist side of it, that's where I started. And it was just like all my pictures were, there's pictures of fish, but the scenery, or like running into otters and bobcats and, areas that I feel like you're more likely to find an arrowhead than you are, a fish, like just crazy places that people don't see. And then I was always like, pedal kayaks, that's not kayaking. And then I got into pedal kayaks and I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And then pedal kayaks, you're like, well, it's still manpower. This is still kayak, and motors are for the centers of the sport.
Sure.
And then first time somebody lets you run one, you're like, well, damn, that was effortless. and then you're stuck. And that's what it was for me. And then for a long time, I call myself moving more than, you're staring at the graph and you're constantly on the motor.
Yep.
And this year I've been able, and I think the Unlimited being such a good platform, not that the Frontier 12 wasn't, but I don't know. And it may just be a mental thing. I've slowed back down a lot. Like, I will still go a long way. Like, I don't think I've done a trip in the Unlimited this year under 15 miles.
Sure.
But most of it is like, we've just found somewhere it takes a long time to get to.
Yeah.
And that's where the motor helps. But once we get there, I mean, again, like, motors are up, you're paddling, we're checking out the scenery, catching big fish that nobody can find. It's still fun.
Yeah.
And like Brian said, it's intimate. It really is. I've always said that kayak fishing is a way more intimate version of fishing to me.
Agree. Closer to the water, closer to the fish, all that good stuff.
Less impact on nature.
Agree 100%. So Brian Slayton asked, does New Canoe make any blinds that can attach to the kayak? Yes,
sir.
We make we teamed up with Mossy Oak, and we have Mossy Oak blinds. It's got all the straps to attach your grass to it to kind of help your hide. It's got detachable doors, so that way you can take them off during transport, things like that. But they make them for all the different models to fit. But I've known people that have ordered a New Canoe blind and put it on a different manufacturer's boat. Just go off the length of what the boat or model is that the blind is made for, and see if that's right in the realm of your kayak, and it'll definitely work.
Do you have one?
Pops up. Yeah. Oh yeah. I got one for the Unlimited. It's all dressed up with blind grass camo. It's a synthetic grass, so we use that up here duck hunting. I paddled mine for northern Wisconsin opener. We were jump shooting birds out of a creek up there in the middle of nowhere, which was kind of cool. And then we used them to get to our spot and then kind of backed into the grass and get set up, or use it to get across the lake or pond, whatever it is, to your spot so you could set up on shore, and then use a kayak to go out and get ducks when you shoot them, or geese, and then pick up your decoys at the end of the day. So
like we're saying, you can put your dog in there, you can.
Yeah, it's got a trap door in the back for a dog if you want your dog to pop in and out, things like that. So
I'm trying to get my shop to get us one in coming into the season for us, so that a lot of people don't realize that they do that. We need to show that off a little more. And then, just because we're kind of on the subject of hunting, man, like, don't take these things out of the equation for deer hunting. Like,
sure.
Check out, if you haven't seen Seek One. Was it Seek One?
Yeah, Seek One and Parker McDonald at Southern Ground Hunting. Those
Amen,
guys,
Romel.
both use them. So,
but yeah, you can pack them full of like the Seek One guys. We had a picture floating around the team page. I think it was their 2 hunters, their gear, and a freaking cameraman standing on the bow
of the Unlimited.
Yeah, cruising across, 3 grown ass men cruising down the river. Like, it'll do it.
Yep.
But yeah, Romel's right. The Flint and the Pursuit are the most underrated. Everybody gets caught up in the big boat buzz with the Frontier 12, Frontier 10, and the Unlimited with the 41 inch width.
Yep.
The Pursuit, I don't know why. It's probably like the least one we sell at our shop, and I think it's just people don't. I don't know. I would say it's because it's so long.
Yeah, they complain about the length. Yeah,
but then like they'll turn around and somebody would like go buy a Hobie. Well, it's 14 feet. Like, this one's 6 inches shorter and faster. Like,
right.
I got to talk to Conley about it. I've got a guy here that they need to come down and film who uses a pursuit on the lower Coosa River in the whitewater. And we're talking like class 2s and 3s. And he's got the pivot drive on it, and he will pedal up the rapids, like up class 2s and 3s. He just won our state championship. We all were doing like partner floats, you know, to put in and take out. He put in, floated down halfway, turned around, and pedaled back up. And it was his way to, you know, if you're thinking about like the fish bite window, he was able to still float down and check areas and then get back to areas at certain times because the pivot drive, like I've used the pivot drive. I wasn't a fan of it, but it's because I fish in such sloppy areas that it's just not effective, but no pedal drive is where I go. It's great if you're running across the lake to get to it. It's effortless to pedal, and it moves those boats fantastic. But the application this guy is using for right now is worth someone taking some video of it to show people, because it's the pursuit being a little narrower and so fast, like flies up those rapids. Just
heck yeah, man.
It'd be, I need to get Conley to get somebody down here to take some good quality video of him.
That would be awesome.
They're going to hate that it's like a 6-year-old model, but
they got
rid of the internal rod storage. They went from two on each side to one on each side, and that's why most of the guys I know won't upgrade.
Sure.
They'll just patch holes or whatever it takes.
Romel said speed kills.
Says the guy that posted the video of flying in a kayak.
I like it, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on tonight, spreading a little love for the paddle and the Flint, and dropping some knowledge for some folks, man. Obviously, you could see at Jimmy_Skinner_fishing on Instagram, Jimmy Skinner on Facebook. Go give him a follow. He's a host of one of the podcasts over at Paddle and Fin, Reel Down. Talks a lot of tournament kayak fishing. What, you guys are live every Wednesday?
Yeah, check us out every Wednesday.
I had to think about that for a second. That's pretty bad.
Well, I don't even think about it being Wednesday because we never record on Wednesday. Because we always
you guys always record Tuesday.
Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff.
But no,
man.
Check us out if you like tournament fishing. Come over to the Paddle and Fin Network. Check us out on the Reel Down. Check out all other great shows. Check out a new canoe if you're listening to this and you're on the fence. Buy one. Yeah. Come out to Music City. Hey, just real quick, just to touch on, you talked about demoing earlier. Call your shops. This time of the year is a really good time of the year. A lot of them have got boats they need to move to make room for next year, or they've got nothing else going on. This is the time that they'll probably let you take boats out and do actual demos rather than going to a demo day and using it for 10 minutes. You can take ours out for the weekend at our shop. Yeah, so you can really see if you like it. So call your shops, ask them, shop around other shops, check them out. Yeah,
I like it, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate your time. Everybody who tuned in, drop comments in. Thank you very much. We're here we were doing every Tuesday, but probably for the rest of this year, we'll do every Thursday night at 6 Central. I got to think about this. 6 Central, 7 o'clock on the East Coast, and
5 o'clock on the West Coast.
4 o'clock on the West Coast. Yeah. See, I threw it off, changed the time, changed the day, all that stuff, because we were doing Tuesdays, but I've been doubling up. It's hunting season, so I could do 2 podcasts one night of the week, and the rest of the week, if I get off work early enough, I'm in the woods. So
there you go.
I like it. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We will catch you next week. Until next time, boys and girls, tight lines, smooth paddle.